Hi, I'm Stuart from the Norfolk Honey Company and welcome to another Getting Started in Beekeeping. Today we're going to take a look at gloves. If this is your first time checking out one of my videos, you're very welcome. This Getting Started series is designed for somebody who's thinking about starting in beekeeping, or maybe has just started, or is in fact planning to start this year and just looking for tips and techniques and some ideas to help with getting involved in your new hobby. One of the things that I get asked on a fairly regular basis is what type of gloves I use, and I thought today we'd take a good look at the different types of gloves that are out there and that are available for you, and the reasons why some are perhaps better suited to beginner beekeepers, better suited to more advanced beekeepers, and the kind of thing that you can expect. And I'll show you a useful tip at the end when you're dealing with a particularly fractious, aggressive colony. So you've just bought your hives, you've got your suit, you've got all the tools that you need, you're about to take ownership of a nucleus colony of bees, and you think, right, I need some gloves. And if you look at all the websites and check out all the various traders that are out there, there's a whole range of different types of gloves that you can get, from the very thin nitrile style of gloves right up to the heavy duty leather gloves, and it's those that I want to start with first of all. And when you first start beekeeping, these might be the type of glove that you would go for, and it's a leather glove. This one is cow leather. It's from BBWear, and you might have seen some of the suits that we were looking at in at the weekend. And it's made up of a leather glove with a heavy duty canvas cloth gauntlet, and it's elasticated at the end so that when you put it on, you've got the glove and then you've got the gauntlet that goes up and over your bee suit. The second one is also a gauntlet. It's leather. This one is the yellow buffalo, and again a BBWear glove. The same canvas gauntlet with the elasticated end. And these are going to give you the maximum protection, and you're not going to get stung through the leather material. And you might think that that's the best glove to go for, but it might not necessarily be the case, and I want to explain why. So for a lot of beginners, one of the potential hurdles to get over is being stung, particularly on or around the hands and the wrists. And so there's a real temptation to get your bee suit and then to go out and buy something like a heavy duty pair of gauntlet style gloves. And that's great if you suffer from allergic reactions, or that you know that you're likely to have an allergic reaction. Then using something like a leather gauntlet is going to give you absolutely the maximum amount of protection, and the bees are not going to sting through this. But there are two real problems with these leather gloves. You can't really feel anything through the gloves. So although you have the protection, when you're holding on to frames, beehives, all of the accessories, you can't really feel if you've got bees on your hands. And so there tends to be more crushing of bees purely by accident, because you can't actually physically feel when you've got bees on your hands, and that can be a real problem. The second issue, and possibly an even more concerning issue, is that with gauntlets, they're going to get dirty. As soon as you open up a hive, these gauntlets are going to get covered in propolis. You're going to inevitably squash bees, and regardless of which gloves you have, there is the risk that you may spread disease between your colonies. And one of the ways that you might be able to avoid that is by washing the gloves in washing soda between inspections. But that's going to make them wet. When the leather gets wet, it becomes slippery, and then there's a risk that you could end up dropping frames of bees, or dropping brood boxes or supers. One of the things that you could do is something called OverGloving. And what you do is you take your gauntlet gloves and then you put some blue nitrile gloves over the top of those to protect the leather beneath. But that is now constricting my hand. I can feel that it's really tight around my hand, and it's going to make handling the colony more difficult still. So this isn't really an option from my perspective, but if you find that you have to have leather gloves and that you want to maintain some form of biosecurity, integrated pest management type plan, then overgloving is definitely something that you could get away with. And those leather gloves come in a range of different styles. You can have them with mesh gauntlets, you can have some ventilation in them, but overall I find them a little bit too cumbersome, and in my mind they're really only designed for somebody who knows or thinks that they may suffer from an allergic reaction and need that extra protection because they can't allow themselves to be stung. So from my perspective, the next step down from the heavy-duty leather gauntlets is to go for something like these. Just simple, ordinary washing up gloves. And these are a lot less thick than the leather gauntlets, but they're still quite a significant amount of rubber there, so the bees will find it more difficult to try and sting through these. And if you wear these and you pull these over your suit and then wear some gauntlets over the top, and you can pick up the gauntlets from most bee suppliers. I know that again BBWear do stock them, and those are the ones that I tend to wear, and it gives you a seal around the wrist, and then it comes down and onto the bee suit so that the bees can't physically get underneath the glove. These have the advantage that you can wash them, so as you're inspecting you can get into your washing soda, give them a good wash, and then you're ready to go with the next hive, and you're not going to cross-contaminate anything or make the gloves unusable because they've become wet. And this was how I first started my beekeeping. I used washing up gloves with gauntlets and found them perfectly adequate. It allows you to feel what you're doing to a certain degree. You still can't feel a lot of bees walking around on the backs of your hands, and inevitably you do end up crushing a few bees, but these are far better and will give you an element of security while you're inspecting. And then finally we have the long cuff nitrile gloves, and these are the gloves of choice for me. I find that these gloves give me a fantastic compromise between some protection from all of the propolis and honey and grime that you get on beehives and around beehives, whilst allowing you to have the feel, to be able to feel that there are bees on your hands, to feel bees moving around, and to know when you're trapping a bee before you crush it. And so here's two different types. I've used them both, and the important thing is to get the long cuff version. If you just buy nitrile gloves, then most of them tend to be short cuff, but if you buy the long cuff version you can pull that over your bee suit, and then if you wear the gauntlets across the cuff and onto the bee suit, then you're going to be perfectly well protected and you won't have any problems with bees getting underneath the cuff and getting trapped and then stinging you. The bees can still sting through these. They won't give you total protection, but they allow you to keep your hands nice and clean so that you're not getting really messy in between hives, and that for me is the important point. I tend to use washing soda to clean my hive tools in between hive inspections, and what I don't want is to be continually putting my hands into washing soda and suffer the effects of having your hands in water, being wet, covered in washing soda, day in, day out over the course of a season. I would much rather wear some thin nitrile gloves and make sure that my hands are kept protected from having to wash them. I don't mind the occasional sting, I'm quite happy to put up with being stung, but with these I get that protection, and you can actually feel if a bee is on the glove and is trying to sting you, so you can then take action by just brushing them off and moving away from the hive if you need to before they do their deed. And if you're just starting and you go along to a local association, beware the old codger sat in the corner who says you don't need to wear gloves, they've never worn gloves, you just have to put up with being stung, and if you wear gloves you're not a true beekeeper. Just ignore what they're saying. do what you feel you want to do in order to maximise the enjoyment for your beekeeping. Just don't listen to what they say. I've had people tell me time and time again that I shouldn't be wearing gloves and it's a waste of time, but for me, I like to wear my gloves, keep my hands protected, and then I can go from colony to colony, and at the end of the day I know that I haven't been dipping my hands into water, into washing soda, being covered in propolis and having to scrub it off at the end of the day. So at the start I mentioned that I've got a tip for you if you find yourself dealing with an unfriendly colony and you needed just to have some extra protection. It's a bit like the leather gauntlet with the nitrile glove over the top of that. It's called double gloving. You take your normal one hand, one glove, and you simply put another glove over the top, and once you've double gloved up, one little trick that I can also recommend is just using a little bit of talcum powder in the glove, just so that you can get the glove onto your hand properly. So we're almost there. So there we are, double gloved. The bees will find it really difficult to sting through this double glove. If I just fold that back, you can see I've got the pale blue underneath and then the purple one on top. And if you pull that down and then put your gauntlet on, that's going to give you really good protection, and you can get through and do an inspection really quickly and deal with those bees rather than being constantly stopped and having to pull out stings from the back of your hand. So I hope you found that useful. So just to summarise, if you're just starting beekeeping and you wanted to take on some gloves and you weren't suffering from any kind of allergy, I would recommend the blue nitrile gloves that I've been showing you. They give you really good protection, you can feel the bees and you can feel exactly what you're doing, and they protect your hand from the washing soda and the cleaning solutions that you might be using. The next step up from that would be the washing up gloves. Those have the advantage of being able to be washed, so you can use them over and over again until they start to deteriorate. And if cost is an issue, then the washing up gloves are a happy medium between having to wear something like the leather gloves and the nitrile gloves. And then finally, if you find yourself being really nervous, or that you know that you do suffer from allergic reactions, then ultimately the leather gloves with the gauntlet attached is going to be the glove to use. Don't be put off by people telling you that you shouldn't be wearing them. Just be mindful that there is the issue regarding transfer of disease, and you're going to have to clean them ideally in between colonies, but certainly in between apiaries. So again, it might be worth just double gloving those. Buy some blue nitrile gloves, make sure they're the long cuff version, and use those on top of the leather gauntlets. Well, I hope you found that useful. Please do hit the subscribe button if you haven't already subscribed. We are so close to the new season now, you can almost taste it. And next week, if the weather's good, we'll start looking at getting into some bees. If you are just about to start beekeeping, I'm going to put together a few videos showing how to introduce a nuke into its new home, and then we're going to set up an apiary and follow that through for the coming season. So hit the subscribe button, please do give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to share on social media networks. We're now on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, so check in the description for those addresses, and I'll leave all the information about the gauntlets, the gloves, in the description below, so you can check those out and decide which one suits you the best. We'll catch up next week. Thanks for watching.